My wife cheated on me at a party. I immediately left her, but years later she found me and revealed the unbelievable truth about that day. The shrill sound of the doorbell pierced through the quiet of my apartment, jarring me from my lazy focus on the TV. I'd been half dozing, lost in some mindless reality show, when that familiar chime snapped me back to attention. Curiosity, tinged with a hint of annoyance, propelled me off the couch. Who could be dropping by unannounced on a Tuesday evening? As I shuffled towards the door, a nagging feeling crept over me. Something about this felt off. I peered through the peephole, and my heart nearly stopped. There, on the other side of the door, stood Emily. My wife. The woman I'd walked away from 3 years ago. How in the hell had she managed to find me? For a moment, I considered retreating to the safety of my living room, pretending I wasn't home. But I knew Emily. If she'd gone to the trouble of tracking me down after all this time, she wasn't going to give up easily. With a resigned sigh, I unhooked the safety chain and cracked open the door. "What the hell do you want?" I growled, my voice harsher than I'd intended. Emily's eyes, those same hazel eyes that used to make my heart skip a beat, locked onto mine. "To talk to you," she said softly. "Please, Ryan, I need to explain." I barked out a laugh. "Explain? You can't be serious. I think the way I left should have told you that I had no interest in ever seeing you again, let alone talking to you." She flinched at my words, but stood her ground. "I have no idea why you left," she said, a hint of desperation in her voice. "I came home, and you were just gone. No note, nothing, just all your things missing." I stared at her in disbelief. "You can't be serious," I repeated. "How could you not know why? You're crazy if you think I'd stick around after what you did. I know you heard me when I told you what would happen if you went through with your plans that night." Emily's brow furrowed in confusion. "Ryan, please, can I come in? We need to talk about this." I hesitated. Every instinct was screaming at me to slam the door in her face, to protect the life I'd built for myself here. But a small part of me, a part one thought I'd buried long ago, was curious. What possible explanation could she have? "Fine," I grumbled, stepping aside. "I suppose I'd best get this over with." As Emily walked past me into the apartment, I caught a whiff of her perfume. It was the same scent she'd worn on our first date, and for a moment I was transported back in time. I shook my head, clearing away the unwelcome memories. Emily perched on the edge of my couch, looking around the room with undisguised curiosity. "Could I have a glass of water?" she asked timidly. I nodded, grateful for the excuse to escape to the kitchen. As I filled a glass from the tap, my mind wandered back to the night that had changed everything. I had just gotten home from work, loosening my tie as I walked through the door. The sight that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Emily was dressed to the nines, her curves hugged by a little black dress that left little to the imagination. "Are we going out?" I asked, confusion evident in my voice. I couldn't remember making any plans. Emily's laugh was light, but there was an edge to it. "We don't have plans," she said, applying a final coat of lipstick. "I have a date tonight." The world tilted on its axis. "A date?" I repeated dumbly. "With who?" "You don't know him," Emily replied, avoiding my gaze. "He's a man I work with. He recently started the company, so hardly anyone knows him yet. He asked me to go to Sophia's birthday celebration with him because he didn't want to attend alone." Sophia, the name alone was enough to set my teeth on edge. Emily's so-called best friend was a walking disaster. 4 divorces under her belt, each one the result of her own infidelity. I'd never understood how my sweet, loyal Emily could be friends with someone like that. "He doesn't know you're married, doesn't he?" I asked, my voice tight with barely contained anger. Emily shrugged, the gesture infuriatingly casual. "It doesn't matter. Nothing is going to happen between us. Besides, I didn't want to go to Sophia's party alone, and he won't go with me, so I told him I'd go with him. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. You understand why I refuse to go, don't you? I can't stand being around that woman, and I don't want you interacting with her either. Emily's eyes flashed with annoyance. Get used to it, Ryan. She's been my best friend since first grade, and I won't turn my back on her just because you don't like her. I don't like her because she's been divorced 4 times, and each time it was because she got caught cheating on her husband. I exploded. And I didn't like going to her parties because of all the drugs she is around. So yeah, I think that just because she cheated, you're likely to cheat too, especially now that you're all dressed up for a date with another man. Emily's face flushed with anger. That's a rotten thing to say to me, Ryan. No, it isn't. I shot back. What did you wear to the last 2 parties at Sophia's, huh? I'll tell you. You wore slacks and a blouse to one, and jeans and a sweater to the other. There isn't any doubt in my mind as to why you're dressed like this for tonight's party. Sophia has finally talked you into trying someone else, hasn't she? Emily's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I continued, my voice low and dangerous. I know from snippets of conversation I've overheard that she's been after you to join her little parties for years. I guess she's finally gotten what she's been after. You're wrong, Emily insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. It isn't like that. I stepped closer to her, my eyes pleading. It's easy enough to prove me wrong, Emily. Don't go. Stay here with me. For a moment, I thought I saw hesitation in her eyes. But then she shook her head. I can't. Tom is counting on me. The words hit me like a physical blow. And he's more important to you than I am? All I can say, Emily, is that if you go, you're kissing your marriage goodbye. Emily rolled her eyes. Don't be ridiculous. This won't hurt us at all. She headed for the door, pausing only to call over her shoulder, Don't wait up. As she reached for the doorknob, I felt something inside me break. Goodbye, Emily, I said, and I knew she heard the finality in my voice. She hesitated for a second or two, but then she was gone. I stood there, staring at the closed door for what felt like hours. Part of me couldn't believe what had just happened. The other part had seen it coming for months. As I wandered back to the living room, my mind raced. Was I overreacting? Maybe. But the Emily I knew would never have done this. The Emily I married would have understood why I was upset, would have stayed home. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popping the cap off with more force than necessary. As I took a long swig, I thought about all the little changes I'd noticed in Emily over the past year. The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd pull away when I tried to kiss her. And always, there was Sophia's influence. I'd overheard snippets of their conversations, Sophia urging Emily to live a little, to forget about that fuddy-duddy you're married to. Each time, Emily had laughed it off, saying she loved me too much to ever cheat. But now she was out on a date with another man, dressed like she was looking to impress. And where was she? At Sophia's party, of course. I spent the next few hours in a haze, alternating between anger, hurt, and disbelief. By the time midnight rolled around, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't live like this anymore, constantly wondering if my wife was faithful, always feeling like I was competing with Sophia's toxic influence. I was just about to head to bed when the phone rang. Glancing at the caller ID, I saw it was Sophia's number. My stomach churned as I picked up the receiver. Hello, I said cautiously. Sophia's voice, slurred with alcohol, came through the line. Hello, idiot. Did I wake you up? I gritted my teeth. What do you want, Sophia? Her laughter grated on my nerves. Just calling to let you know your wife has finally found herself a real man. A man who can give her what she really needs. My blood ran cold. What the hell are you talking about? Just what I said, Sophia replied, her voice dripping with malicious glee. Emily's found herself a real man. Here, just listen. Before I could protest, the sounds of passion filled my ear. And then, clear as day, I heard Emily's voice. A God, yes. Take me, please, please harder. I slammed the phone down, my hand shaking. This couldn't be happening. Not Emily. Not my Emily. But it was. And in that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I spent the rest of the night in a frenzy of activity. I packed up everything I cared about, loading it into my truck. By the time the sun rose, I was ready to leave my old life behind. I hit the bank as soon as it opened, cleaning out all our accounts. Then I swung by work, told Jake, my boss, that I was quitting without notice and why. To his credit, Jake was understanding. He cut me my final check, helped me load my tools, told me I could use him as a reference, and wished me well. My phone had been ringing since 7 a.m., all calls from Emily. I finally turned it off and made a mental note to get a new number. Then I changed my mind. I didn't know if Emily could get the new number out of her cell phone provider or not, so I decided to pitch the phone in a trash can and buy a burner phone at Walmart. By 10 a.m., I was on the road with no destination in mind except away. I didn't need to do anything with our credit cards, since Emily and I didn't have any joint cards. She had 2 in her name, and I had 3 in mine. I ended up in Castle Rock, Colorado. Found a job in my field, rented a small apartment, and tried to start over. For 2 years, I lived a quiet life. Hated a bit, nothing serious. And then out of the blue, there was Emily on my doorstep. Coming back to the present, I realized I'd been standing in the kitchen far too long. With a sigh, I grabbed the water and headed back to the living room. Emily was still perched on the edge of the couch, looking around the room with curiosity. Her eyes landed on me as I entered, and she gave me a tentative smile. "Here," I said gruffly, handing her the water. "Now, what do you want?" She took a sip before speaking. "I'd want to explain what happened that night, Ryan. It's not what you think." I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. "Really, because I think it's pretty clear what happened. You went on a date with another man, ended up in bed with him, and that was that." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "No, Ryan, that's not. I was drugged that night. Someone slipped something into my drink at the party. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut." "What?" She nodded, her voice shaky as she continued. "I did not go to that party to cheat. It was the farthest thing from my mind. I guess maybe I did overdress for the party, but Sophia asked me to. For some reason, she said she didn't like Tom, but she couldn't tell him not to come to the party because it was an open invitation to everyone in the office. She asked me to dress revealingly and let him think he was going to get lucky." I listened in stunned silence as Emily continued her story. "I liked dressing up, so I did. Tom did take one look at me and think he was going to hit the jackpot that night. He stuck to me like he was glued on, almost like he was afraid that if he wasn't near, someone else might get me. It was a fun party, and even though Tom hovered nearby, I guess the other guys thought I'd looked hot that night, and I did dance with several of them." Emily took a deep breath before continuing. "Just as the party was breaking up, I started feeling dizzy. Sophia told me she thought I'd had too much to drink that night, and she had me lie down in one of her spare bedrooms. I don't know how or when it started, but I slowly became aware that I was being made love to." My stomach churned as I listened to Emily's words. Part of me wanted to stop her, to tell her I didn't want to hear any more, but another part needed to know the truth. "I thought I was home in bed with you," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper, "until I heard someone say, 'Hurry it up, will you?' I'm next." I looked around and saw Sophia along with Tom and Ben Brady. I saw several other guys standing around without clothes on, one of them apparently the guy who was supposed to be next. Emily's eyes met mine, pleading for understanding. You know me, Ryan. You know how I get when we make love. I lose it. I become a mere vessel of pleasure. I don't know how many did me before I passed out. I felt sick. The image of Emily, my Emily, being passed around like that. It was almost more than I could bear. But I forced myself to listen as she continued her story. I woke up the next morning next to Bob Flanagan, Emily said, her voice hollow. He was leaning on an elbow, looking at me. I saw the look on his face and asked, "What?" He said, "Just never thought you would cheat on Ryan. Glad that you did, though. Hope to see more of you." I promptly slapped him across the cheek, got dressed, and headed to the hospital. Emily took another sip of water, her hand shaking slightly. I told them that I thought I had been given a date-rape drug. They did the testing and found traces of rohypnol and ecstasy in my blood. Then they called the cops. I felt a mix of emotions washing over me. Anger, guilt, confusion. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, my voice rough. Emily looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed. I tried. While waiting for the police, I tried calling you but got no answer. I found out why when I got home and found you gone. She took a shuddering breath before continuing. When the police talked to me, I told them what I knew and what little I remembered. The first one they talked to was Flanagan, and he told them he had no idea I was drugged. He said he thought nothing of taking me because that's what always happened at Sophie's parties, and I knew it, and had even stood around and watched before. He said he figured that I had finally decided to give it a try. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling overwhelmed. Jesus, Emily, I had no idea. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. The police thought that Tom had to be part of what happened to me that night, and when they leaned on him, he rolled over and told them it was all Sophie's doing. She just knew that I really wanted to join in. So she decided to give me a push. She figured that once the drug wore off, I'd still be into it, and I'd love it and want to do it again. Emily's voice hardened. She was right about one thing. I did love it. But where she screwed up was she didn't pay any attention to the fact that I told her over and over again that I would not join in without you. You had to be on board with it, or I wouldn't do it. I felt like my head was spinning. This was so much to take in, so different from what I'd imagined had happened that night. What did you do then? I asked. Once I was done with the hospital and the police, Emily continued, her voice steady now. A policeman drove me home. That's when I found out why I never got an answer when I tried calling you. I broke down and cried for 2 days straight. I felt a pang of guilt at her words. If only I had stayed if I had answered her calls. After that, Emily went on. I got an attorney and sued everyone who had been at that party and who had done me. She stumbled over the words, and I could see the pain in her eyes. Most of the suits were thrown out because they all said the same thing Flanagan had said. But the suits against Sophia and Tom were valid because the two of them had conspired against me. I leaned forward, intrigued despite myself. What happened with the lawsuits? Emily's lips curved in a small bitter smile. I won. But Sophia had nothing but her house. So I was asked if I would settle for it. She still owed $300,000 on it. But with what I got from Tom, I was able to pay it off. Then I sold it. I nodded slowly, processing this information. And that's how you found me. You used the money from the sale to hire a private investigator. Yes, Emily confirmed. Once I had the money from the sale of the house, I hired the private detective. And here I am. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything she told me hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I spoke. You wasted your money on the PI at the time it took you to get here, Emily. For what? To get us back together. Emily's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of hope and determination. I love you, Ryan. I belong with you. I shook my head, feeling a surge of frustration. You would have been smart to have spent your money on an attorney to get you a divorce. You could have used abandonment as grounds. I don't want a divorce, Ryan, Emily insisted. What you want or don't want doesn't matter to me anymore, Emily, I said, my voice hard. I didn't do it willingly, Ryan, she pleaded. I was drugged. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the old anger and heart bubbling up. But you did willingly walk out the door, even though I told you if you walked out that door, you were kissing your marriage goodbye. You ignored what I said and walked out. Again, the way I left should have told you that you would be wasting your time and money to get here. Emily's face crumpled. I have to be here if I'm going to put us back together. I felt a flash of irritation. You aren't paying any more attention to what I'm saying now than you did on the evening you walked out on me. Pay attention, Emily. I don't want you. You can't put us back together because I do not. And I emphasize do not want to get back together with a woman who could do what you did. Damn it, Ryan, Emily cried, frustration evident in her voice. Can't you understand that I did not do it of my own free will? I was drugged. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. You are the one not understanding things, Emily. It isn't what happened at Sophia's, although I did expect it to happen. And I warned you it was likely to. It's what you did before you walked out the door to go to Sophia's. It was a total disrespect for me you showed before leaving for your date. Don't be ridiculous, Ryan. This won't hurt us at all. As you walked out that door to go on another date with another man killed any us that could have been. Emily opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. Now, please leave. I need to get ready for dinner. I'm hungry. I'll eat with you, Emily said quickly. We can talk. I'm going to convince you that you're wrong when you say we can't put things back together. Her words had barely faded when the front door opened and a voice called out, I'm home, babe. What's for dinner? A stunning blonde walked in and paused when she saw Emily. Oh, who's this? I cleared my throat. This is Emily. You've heard me speak of her a time or two. Emily, this is Jessica. To my surprise, Jessica's face set up. She walked over to Emily, bent down, and gave her a hug. Thank you for sending Ryan to me, she said warmly. Emily looked shell-shocked as Jessica turned to me and asked, What's for dinner? I thought we'd go out. I replied. I made reservations at Angelo's. Jessica beamed. Nice. I'll do change. She gave Emily another quick hug before heading to the bedroom. Nice meeting you, Emily. Maybe we can get together sometime and compare notes. As soon as Jessica was out of her shot, Emily turned to me, her face pale. Does she know you're still married? I nodded. She does? Emily's jaw set in determination. You need to let her know I'm going to fight for you, Ryan. I sighed, feeding a mix of frustration and pity. Get real, Emily. For you to fight for me, you would need to spend time with me. And that just isn't going to happen. Get a divorce and find yourself another man. And when you do find him, don't pull the shit on him that you pulled on me. Tears were sliding down Emily's cheeks as she said, Done it, Ran. Why can't you understand that I did not cheat on you? I was drugged. I felt my patience wearing thin. So what? You had to be there in order to be drugged. And that is the point. I told you not to go. I told you when you opened the door to leave that if you left, you were kissing your marriage goodbye. You ignored me. You left. Marriage over. Simple as that. Emily's voice was thick with emotion as she said, I'm not going to divorce you, Ryan. And you need to let your girlfriend know that she is never going to be able to marry you. I couldn't help but laugh at that. She can't marry me. She's already married and in the same boat I'm in. Her husband won't give her a divorce, and she won't waste the money trying to get one. Emily stood up, her legs shaky. I'll go, but I'm not going far. I can't get you back long distance, so I'm moving here. I'm going to get you back. I shook my head, feeling a mixture of frustration and sadness. No, you aren't Emily. I've already said this several times, and you need to get it through your head that I mean it. I do not want you. Now go. She was crying as she left, but she did leave. Jessica came into the room, looking radiant in a simple black dress. Why aren't you ready? She asked. He decided not to go. I shook my head. No, it just took longer to get rid of her than I thought. She'd gone for good. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Should be? I let her know in no uncertain terms that I wanted nothing to do with her. I smiled at that. That's good, because I did not intend to let you get away from me. Jessica's face softened, and I have no intention of going anywhere. Now hurry up and get ready. I'm starving. As I headed to the bedroom to change, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The past was behind me, and I had a future to look forward to with Jessica. Emily might think she was going to fight for me, but she was fighting a battle that was already lost. I paused at the bedroom door and looked back at Jessica, who was humming to herself as she flipped through a magazine. Yeah, I thought to myself, I've got everything I need right here.